Once upon a time, in the quiet little town nestled amidst emerald hills and whispering forests, there lived a kind-hearted grandmother named Mrs. Maple. With her silver hair tied in a neat bun and a twinkle in her warm hazel eyes, she was adored by all who knew her. Every morning, as the golden rays of the sun painted the sky with hues of pink and orange, Mrs. Maple would embark on her daily stroll through the cobblestone streets. Clutching a sturdy wicker basket filled to the brim with the ripest bananas from her garden, she would greet her neighbors with a cheerful smile and a kind word. On one particularly sunny morning, as Mrs. Maple made her way through the bustling marketplace, her basket swinging lightly at her side, she noticed something peculiar. There by the edge of the path lay a fluffy white rabbit, its paw held up in a pitiful display of injury. "Oh my goodness gracious!" exclaimed Mrs. Maple, her heartstrings tugging at the sight of the supposedly injured creature. She knelt down beside it, her gentle hands reaching out to comfort the little rabbit. But as she drew near, the rabbit's eyes twinkled mischievously, and before Mrs. Maple could react, it leaped up with a sprightly hop, revealing that its injury was nothing more than a clever ruse. Chuckling at the rabbit's antics, Mrs. Maple scooped it up and placed it gently into her basket, beside the mound of golden bananas. "Well, well, what a trickster you are," she chuckled, shaking her head in amusement. With the rabbit nestled among the bananas, Mrs. Maple resumed her journey homeward. The sun danced merrily in the sky, casting dappled shadows along the path as she made her way back to her cozy cottage. But little did Mrs. Maple know, the cunning rabbit had plans of its own. As they journeyed along, the rabbit's nose twitched with anticipation, and one by one it began to nibble on the ripe bananas nestled beside it. By the time they reached Mrs. Maple's cottage, the once brimming basket was nearly empty, save for a few stray banana peels. Mrs. Maple gasped in disbelief as she peered inside, her eyes widening in surprise. "Oh my goodness gracious me!" she exclaimed, her hands flying to her cheeks in shock. "Where have all my bananas gone?" But before Mrs. Maple could ponder the mystery any further, the crafty rabbit made its move. With a swift leap, it bounded out of the basket and scampered off into the forest, leaving Mrs. Maple staring after it in astonishment. As the truth dawned upon her, Mrs. Maple couldn't help but laugh at the sheer audacity of the little rabbit. "Well, well, it seems I've been outsmarted by a furry little trickster," she chuckled, shaking her head in amusement. And though her basket may have been emptied of bananas, Mrs. Maple carried home a heart full of laughter and a tale to share with all who would listen, the curious case of the banana-loving rabbit and the kindly grandmother. With a smile on her lips and a twinkle in her eye, Mrs. Maple retired to her cozy cottage, where she knew that even the smallest of adventures could bring the greatest joy. And as the stars twinkled overhead and the moon cast its silvery glow, she drifted off to sleep, dreaming of new adventures yet to come. Thank you for watching. If you like the story, please subscribe for more video.